Well, it's Thursday, and you all know what that means. As you know, Ring of Honor is going to have some interesting matches that we're going to be watching. We do have a proving ground match, of course, for the ROH Women's World Television title. So, Red Velvet, of course, will face someone who is worthy enough, hopefully the challenger. Then we have, of course, the Swirl, Blake Christian, and Lee Johnson taking on Dark Order, and plenty other matches as well. Then we move on with TNA. As you all know, TNA makes their official televised debut at AMC, and this is a historic moment. However, certain things have really turned out interesting. Uh, as probably you know, the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team belts are on the line. And of course, the main event features the TNA World Championship, but we did have a surprise visit from a TNA alumni. Many of you know him, and I will explain when we get there because it's going to be a lot of fun. But first things first. Now, since I didn't forgot to review this one this past Wednesday, I decided, you know what? Let's do it anyway because I was an idiot. So we're going to be reviewing, of course, WWE Evolved. Now, this comes out after, of course, where Jackson Drake, as you know, retained the Evolve Championship against Shawn Legacy. But the real question is, what is the guys from the PC have in mind? As you know, there's a bit of a war between the WWE ID prospect guys versus the PC guys. So that's going to be a lot to, of course, to go through. And then finally, of course, as always, we wrap up our episode as usual with some news updates to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Elite Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Elite Wrestle Zone. All things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information is unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us. So click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the jibber jabbers. Let's get started. So let's begin with WWE Evolve. Okay, so WWE Evolve. Now, we opened up with, of course, things that have been happening. As you know, the guys from the Performance Center, or as the PC, are happy with the fact that they are in control for this particular week in Evolve. But, however, of course, the Vanity Project are claiming that they are the ones in control of Evolve. But, however, other people from the WWE prospects have a different idea. They're saying that in the moment, the Vanity Project may have been the top dogs, but however, they're more concerned about the fact that the PC guys could do more damage. But of course, the Vanity Project are not concerned over that. Then later, we will see both sides. The Vanity Project, Jackson Drake, Brad Baylor, and Ricky Smokes take on Aaron Rourke, Cappuccino Jones, and Eli Knight. So that's a lot of things we're going to be seeing. Now, we opened up with a three-way match for the Evolve Women's Championship. Kendall Gray defends it against, of course, former champion Callie Armstrong, and of course, someone who has recently made her intentions known, PJ Vasa. Now, of course, obviously, Kendall Gray doesn't need to be pinned in this particular match. If that's the case, you guys may notice. But however, of course, we know that Callie Armstrong, as our first inaugural champion, will do whatever it takes to bring it back. But of course, you cannot deny the strength and powerness of PJ Vasa. But however, Callie Armstrong had this match won, but she was blindsided by Kendall Gray when she applied a high stakes code breaker from the top turnbuckle. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, she retained the championship. However, during the post match, Carmen Petrovic, who was at the VIP lounge, let's just say she had some things to say about Callie Armstrong. As you know, she claims that she is still the top dog regardless. But however, Carmen Petrovic doesn't see it. So you can see that these two ladies trash talk each other. So we most likely will see these two fight off at some point. So we'll just have to wait and see when that day comes. Now, our next match, this is the battle of the technical aspects of course, we have Timothy Thatcher versus Charlie Dempsey. Now, for quite some time, for weeks, of course, Charlie Dempsey has been trying to get Timothy Thatcher in the match because, as you know, Timothy Thatcher decided to be a coach. He'd rather not wrestle again because he feels like this is the new generation. But for Charlie, it's like saying, stop being such a bitch, all right? Just wrestle me. Prove once and for all. But, of course, he's been getting under his skin. And, of course, he got that coming about a week ago. But however, you can tell that this is something that it was wanted. But in the end, of course, it was Charlie Dempsey that walked away with the win when he applied the Fujiwara armbar, and just like that, Timothy had no choice but to tap. Now, our main event, we have, of course, the Vanity Project, and of course, the guys from WWE ID are in fact taking on each other. We're talking about Aaron Rourke, um, Eli Knight, and Cappuccino Jones. And I have to say, the match was pretty incredible. You would have assumed that these guys would have picked up the win, but however, that wasn't the case because it was Jackson Drake onto, um, who was it, onto Eli Knight that they applied the unaligning, and just like that, Vanity Project are won the match. However, at the post match, well, Cam Hendricks, as you know, who is the guy who won the Gauntlet match and has a right to challenge for the Evolve Championship, well, let's just say he came up with this perfect idea. He decided to put, of course, Riggins, Paisley, and of course, Kiana Carver in a 3-on-1 match against, of course, Jackson Drake, which is something that Drake did not want. And he should have known better that this was something that was cooked up because this particular week is gonna happen in 2 weeks' time. But however, it was later decided uh, it was gonna happen on the 28th of January. But however, it appears that it seems that Hendricks had a better idea that the following week he'll be challenging, of course, uh, Jackson Drake for the championship, and it was a smart move because who knows the kind of damage that Carver, Riggins, and Paisley will do to him leading up to the following week. And I don't think this is something that Jackson Drake anticipated. He claims that the Vanity Project are in control, but the reality is, are they? Are they in control? That's the problem that I think that they're overlooking. If they don't pay attention, well, they might look like lose their spot. So we'll see what happens. But however, the show ended with Wild, of course, watching this from the back. I don't know what's going on in his head, but we'll see where that goes from there. But as of right now, we are done with WWE Evolve. Let's move on with Ring of Honor. Okay, Ring of Honor. We opened up with tag team action. We have, of course, the Spanish announce project Serpentico and Angelico taking on the Grizzled Young Vets, James Drake and Ricky Gibson. Now, of course, nothing of storyline wise involved this, but however, of course, the GYV are continuing to prove their dominance in ROH or AEW, however they want to put it out. However, of course, it was GYV that walked away with the win, with, of course, James Drake applying a coast to coast on Serpentico while he's being subdued by Gibson. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, the GYV win. However, during the post match, they had a warm message, of course, to Ortiz and Eddie Kingston. As you know, the war has been escalating a little bit more. Well, they decided to send a message by beating down the Spanish Announce Project, but luckily, Ortiz and Kingston showed up to save them, and of course, the GYV ran like cowards. So that's how things rolled up from there at the start. Now, our next match, we have Lance Archer taking on Vin Parker. Now, obviously, we all know how this match was going to go. This match was going to go directly towards, of course, Lance Archer, since he put him out with the blackout, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, everybody dies. Just like that, it was over. Next match, we have this guy named Karen Gray taking on Shane Taylor. Now, this match, not a lot about Karen Gray has been told, but this man took the biggest beating of his life. Shane Taylor put everything, everything that he had in his arsenal to put Karen Gray away. I mean, this guy was like continuing fighting and fighting until, of course, Shane Taylor had no choice but to take him out with a fist to the face, and just like that, he knocked him out, cover him with the pinfall. 1, 2, 3, done. Now, our next match, we have an 8-man tag match. On one side, we have the Frat House. All members, Jack Jamison, Griff Garrison, Preston Vance, and Cole Carter, taking on the combined forces of Aaron Solo and QT Marshall. They team up, of course, with the Von Erichs, Ross and Marshall Von Erich. Now, obviously, we know that, of course, the Von Erichs had dealt with the Frat House before, but this time they're going to show them exactly who are the Von Erichs. But this time they team up with Aaron Solo and QT Marshall. But in the end, it was QT Marshall with the diamond cutter onto Jack Jamison. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, over. Next match, we have MXMTV, consistent of Tail Valkyrie, Mansoor and Mason Madden taking on Shane Taylor Promotions, Trish Adora, and the Infantry, Sean Dean and Carly Bravo. Now, obviously, we know this is going to be an interesting match because both sides are determined to prove their dominance, and that's exactly what we've been witnessing from both sides. But however, at some point, Mansoor was, of course, distracted by some beautiful woman in ringside, not knowing what's going on until Carly Bravo blindsided him, giving him a chance to put him back in the ring, allowing for the Infantry to apply the stomp. And just like that, covered by Bravo. 1, 2, 3. Shane Taylor Promotions won. However, we have no idea who this woman is who just made her debut. Sean Dean and Trish Adora, like, what the hell? You know, they have no idea who this woman is. Nobody actually knows who it is, but I'm going to say maybe could be Carly Bravo's girlfriend or so. But we'll see what happens next week when that is revealed. Now, our next match is an proving ground for the ROH Women's World Television title. Red Velvet, of course, faces off against Robin Renegade, someone who we often seen in both Ring of Honor and AEW. So obviously we know that Red Velvet will pick up the win. But of course, Robin Renegade was distracted when she thought she had this match won and questioned the referee when he went into the count. Well, it just went up to 2. But because of that, it cost her, but it was a left KO right into her face, and just like that, cover with the pinfall. 1, 2, 3, Red Velvet won. Now, a big interesting news has been announced between both Tony Khan and Athena. According to many of you may not know this, Athena runs a promotion called Metroplex Wrestling based out of Texas. And apparently Tony Khan said they're going to have the best that they have from that particular promotion and turn it into a Global Wars event, which we have seen several times. So this is something very unique, and this will happen in 2 weeks' time. So I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. Now let's jump into our main event. We have, of course, Swirl, consistent of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson, along with that turncoat Jay Lethal. They take on Dark Order, Alex Reynolds, and Evil Uno. Now, as you know, Swirl has been trying to prove their point for a long time. Blake Christian has been trying to prove to the world that he should be the ROH World Champion because he felt that this company should be on his back, but apparently he failed. But of course, when it comes to this, Jay Lethal gets himself involved, and then we did see a Swirl sub onto Reynolds, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Swirl won. However, post match, we did see a beatdown happening, and thank God for Tommy Billington and Adam Priest to show up. So basically, we're gonna see more this. I'm sure the Billington and Priest are not happy with Lethal for what he's done. So we'll see where that leads us from there. But as of right now, we're done with Ring of Honor. Let's move on to our last and final review, TNA. All right, TNA. As you all know, they make their official AMC debut, a historic moment in their lives. We opened up, of course, with someone from TNA's past and history. We're talking about Get Ready to Fly. Yep, the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, return and, of course, greet the fans. And all this, of course, talk about moments of glory, all of it. So it's great to see that he show up because, as you know, he will, and to me, he will always be a guy from TNA that I loved to watch back in the day. So it's great to see he was in there. I'm sure many of you thought the same thing too. Now we opened up with the six-man tag team match. We have, of course, Elijah teaming up with the Hardys, Matt and Jeff Hardy, taking on Order of Four, consistent of the Dumb Hands, John Skyler and Jason Hotch, along with the Crybaby Mustafa Ali, and of course Tasha Steelz and that big dumb brute, um, Agent Zero was right there. But of course, we were going to see outside interference happening because that's always been the Order for MO. Tasha Steelz tried to get involved until she got caught in a crossfire by Mustafa, and things didn't go according to plan. But however, it was Jeff Hardy that walked away with the win when he applied the Swanton Bomb onto who was it? Onto John Skyler, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, while the Hardys and Elijah were in fact celebrating, Agent Zero decided to put on his big boy pants and decided to attack Elijah and the Hardys. So, of course, he had to be a big crybaby about that his teammates lost. But, of course, out of nowhere, the Righteousness showed up, and they put, of course, Jeff Hardy in his earring attached to some chain and thing. And they already now declaring they're coming after the the TNA World Tag Team belt. So that's something that's been already in the works. Now, we did see an interview with Gia Miller talking to the TNA World Champion, Frankie Kazarian, as you know, asking him, what does this mean? Because this is a big monumental event for him because, of course, this is something big. However, as you probably know, Frank Kazarian confronted by his past, and I'm talking about AJ Styles. So, of course, Frankie tried to tell him, you want me to thank you because I had this company in my back? But, of course, AJ doesn't seem like he thinks that he's the guy who should be carrying TNA on his back. So we'll get to that a bit. Now, we did see Gia Miller go into the ringside, talk to several stars who were on the outside of the ring. Amongst them is, of course, Mara Shade and Candice Michelle. Many of you remember from the GoDaddy, who later turned into wrestler in WWE. They were in presence. But of course, someone decided to be a party pooper out of nowhere, and that is Ryan Meth, until he was taken out once again. So, as you probably can guess, him and Marsha, they continue with their little stunts going on. But yeah, so we'll see where that leads. Now, we did see a promo from Santino Marella, of course, getting back into business. As you know, he was coming out of his depression and heartbreak over what his own daughter did to him like last year. But he, of course, he knows that he cannot continue doing this. He has a job to do to make the fans happy and everybody else happy. And then, of course, he did told the upper management they assigned him an assistant, and that assistant name is Daria Ray. Many of you know her as, of course, Sonya Deville. And of course, things got a little interesting. It seems that Sonya Deville feels that she should be in control because, of course, she thinks that Santino's emotions are compromised. So basically, she was trying to put him in his place. But of course, Daria announced later on that she just signed someone, and that person is Elena Black. Many of you know her as Cora Jade back in NXT. So basically, we are now seeing her there now. Now, we go to the backstage. We see Mike Santana is getting ready to prepare for himself for the biggest night of his life, of course, for the TNA World title. But however, he was approached by, of course, a former champion and well-recognized star in TNA, currently in WWE, of course, AJ Styles. And AJ kind of told him that he never did saw him as the guy who could be leading TNA into the future. He probably views Santana as the guy to do so, so he told him to kick his ass. So, of course, Santana's going to do exactly what he does best. Now, before our next match, which is the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Belts, the Elegance brand has now introduced, of course, Mr. Elegance. So basically, there was this guy. I feel like I've seen him before. I just don't know. But of course, we jump into the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Belts. The Iinspitation taking on. But we did see interference coming from that little Chihuahua and Mr. Elegance getting involved, and this allowed for M to pin, of course, Jesse, and just like that, of course, the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Belts are back into the Elegance brand, and that's exactly what they've been hoping for. Now, we did see Stax and Ariana Grace laughing their butts off, mocking what happened to Santino Marella and all this and that. And now, of course, they're determined that no one's going to take away the TNA International belt. Well, someone will. We just don't know when or where. Now, Indy Hartwell, as you know, she's been in a funk since losing to Danny Luna in the dog collar match. So she is now determined to try to make 2026 her year to become the TNA Knockouts World Champion. But of course, her little party was in fact interrupted by the arrogance of the Elegance brands, claiming that she will never become the TNA Knockouts World Champion. But never say never, folks, because she can pull it off. And trust me, we will see that. Now, initially, we were supposed to have, of course, Danny Luna versus Zaya Brookside for the TNA Knockouts World title, but however, some things have changed, and I'll put that, of course, in the news updates in a bit. Apparently, they decided to set up an open challenge, and the person to respond, it was in fact Soruka and Zarya, who were their presence. They're watching the Knockouts tag team belts on the line. Apparently, of course, they are responding to the challenge, but Soruka decided that Zarya, who is, in her opinion, the resident warrior between the two of them, should have this opportunity. And Zarya was surprised to hear that from her. So she actually signed the contract. So we will see those two, Zarya versus, of course, Li Yingling for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Now, Santino had some bad news for, of course, Cedric Alexander regarding Genesis. Apparently, he did tell them that Leon Slater had some visa issues, that he's unable to make it to Genesis. But he did state it that, of course, regardless, he still has an opportunity for the TNA X Division title, which will happen, but the match has to continue. So he found a replacement. Now, he wasn't planning to say his name until he said it, and that is, say his name and he appears. No, he did not appear. He just appeared by the phone. And of course, Cedric's like, did you do this? Nope, but that was incredible. So it was very interesting to see that. Now, the system, as you know, well, let's just say they're about to have their last hoorah with JDC. As you know, JDC is going to retire real soon, and he will be facing Eddie Edwards and of course in a match in Genesis, and this is something that he chosen. And of course, they did mention that following week there is going to be a replacement, so that's going to be later on. Now, we did see Carlos Silva, of course. We had a surprise visit from someone from TNA's past. Dixie Carter. Now, for many of you who don't know who she is, if you haven't caught on to TNA just yet, Dixie Carter used to be, of course, a majority shareholder back in the 2000s of TNA. Some people say that she was one of the few people that allowed TNA to die out all those years ago. And of course, people booed her for that. We did see her later. We did see Bully Ray, who later, of course, hugged her. Many of you who may not remember, or they do remember, it was Bully Ray that put Dixie Carter through a table while he powerbombed her through it. And of course, Bully Ray did made his way to, of course, the commentary booth to, of course, the witness the main event, which is the TNA World Championship. Now, of course, Frank Kazarian is determined to, of course, walk away with the belt, no matter what. He wants to claim that this is his kingdom. He's the rightful king of TNA. But he did apply, of course, the spin the block onto Santana, but Santana, of course, kicked out. But there were multiple times where Santana intending to apply his own spin the block until he finally got the opening opportunity. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, brand new TNA World Champion. So that is, of course, something we probably would have expected. So that means something's going to happen in Genesis. So we're going to find out what. So stay tuned for that. So let's move on to our last and final thing, news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news updates. So let's begin with upcoming events. Let's start with GCW updates, of course. As you know, the 17th of January, they'll be in Dallas, Texas for Code of the Street. They just announced Jordan Oliver will take on Teriyaki. And then, of course, next month on the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day in LA, they'll be for the Coldest Winter 4. They just announced Alex Hammerstone will take on one called Manders. And then finally, as you know, the Phoenix show on the 19th of February, holy smokes, they just announced Ray Horace will take on Vengador. That's going to be one baller, a lucha libre match right there. Now, on to some West Coast Pro updates as well. On the 7th of February, they'll be at the Bay Area Brawl. They just announced that JAC will be participating. And then later on the 27th of February, they'll be in LA for Evil Empire. They just announced a couple of things. One is the West Coast Pro Women's Championship will be on the line. Johnny Robbie defends it against Laney Luck. And two names have been announced to participate in this event, and that is, of course, Alpha Zoe and Bear Bronson. So that's going to be really cool to watch. MLW has announced for their Lucha Apocaliptico taking place on the 7th of February. Of course, Mystico will be there, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, many of you know this, the Dragon Gate will be present known at the WrestleMania weekend, participating in an event that is now called the Gates of Sin City. That will happen on the 15th of April. They have already announced who will be participating. We have members of Paradox, consistent of Yamato, Dragon Kid, and Suzumu Yoshiko. They even announced Yuki Yoshioka, KZ, and Ho-Ho Loon will be involved. So I'm sure there'll be more names to be added. And then finally, as you know, the Kenta Kobashi show that happens once a year, Fortune Dream 11, that will take place on the 16th of April in Corkin Hall. It was already announced that Suri will be, of course, participating, but however, it was later announced that she'll be participating in a three-way match. Mystery opponents have not been announced, and I'm sure we will get that as soon as possible. Now, on to some developments here for all of you. First, let's start with something I like to call the Fightful Select Report. AAA on Fox, as you know, as I mentioned, is going to happen, and it's going to be aired live every third week, something like that. So that's the great news to hear from them. Lena Kross, it was later confirmed by Fightful that yes, she is now signed with AEW. We know that WWE were interested in her or something like that, but yes, she's now in it. As you know, there were certain interesting things that happened. There was no shows that happened at the TNA for the AMC debut. Steve Macklin was not there, neither was Danny Luna. So it's very interesting. But I'm going to presume with Danny Luna, the reason she was not there, I'm going to say that maybe she was having some visa issues as Leon Slater. But Steve Macklin, that's still an unknown thing that we still don't know yet about that. Now, uh, Penelope Ford, as you know, she was injured for quite some time. Now, Fightful Select reports that she is medically cleared, so I can't wait to see that. Now, as you know, we did watch TNA. The Iinspitation lost the TNA Knockouts World Title. It's just been told that they are now officially free agents, so we just don't know where they'll be going. I'm sure people would say, oh, they probably head back to WWE because that's what they were from the very beginning. Maybe so. We just don't know yet. I'm not sure if AEW has any interest in them yet, but we'll see. Now, moving on, Dave Meltzer had his thoughts about, of course, Powerhouse Hobbs. As you know, Hobbs, as you probably can guess, is already out of AEW and testing the waters. But Dave Meltzer had some things to say. Let me pull it up. What he actually said. I think it's going to be interesting. Here it is. So this is what Dave Meltzer reports. He turned down AEW offer, wanted to go to WWE. We'll see. For some people, it's the right move, and some people in it isn't. Tony Khan liked them and everything, and he was a professional. Tony didn't take him off TV, so tells me he didn't know what's going on. He what didn't know he was going. WWE pretty much confident they will had him in for months, really. So we'll see what happens until then. And then finally, of course, some interesting things happened in TNA. This was reported by PW Insider, so this is what they reported. Um, TNA has undergone rewrites and will make changes for some plans leading into tonight's Impact AMC on Saturday and Genesis pay per view. The changes were brought upon by number of visas not being completed in time. Also, Fightful reports. TNA management and creative have been working on the alternate plan ideas over the last 48 hours. So yeah, so that explains why Leon Slater, Danny Luna, and a few others may not have been present due to visa issues. So we'll see how that rolls up. But right now, I think that's pretty much it what we have for our news updates and everything else. Let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, haven't decided yet what I'm gonna do. I'm still thinking about trying to catch up to some of the events from Japan to catch up with those, but I'm thinking about doing maybe some from the of December of 2025 and the ones that started early this year. So we'll see how that plays out. Just hopefully things work out in my favor. If not, then I apologize for that. But until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye, and have a nice day. Bang.